Cymbal House in Covington, Kentucky. What a great store, shop, whatever you want to call it. It's just nothing but cymbals. It's just an amazing place. I was tapping on the drums earlier, doing some tuning, and I could just hear the whole room just the sympathetic vibration was just incredible. Anyhow, I really don't know of another shop like this that I've ever been to. So this is a great local resource for you guys. That's crazy, man. We were talking earlier about going into like a big box retail store, and you're trying to pick out cymbals and things. Well, of course, you have trouble doing that because you've got the guitar player down the hallway and the keyboard player. You really can't zone in on what you really want to hear. This is the place here. And it's even more incredible because of all these Bosphorus cymbals. Now, are you guys are familiar with Bosphorus?
Somewhat.
Yeah. So you had a specific question before we started, and I told you to wait for a minute. And, okay. You're talking about the different models.
Right, for which style of music?
Different rock.
Okay. So why I wanted to wait and talk about this is I have a theory about that. So and if you don't look at it from the size of the drums, the size of the kick drum and everything else, what do you think about when you think rock drums, jazz drums, country drums? I mean, what do you think about?
Yes, I think big rides, if you spend more time on rides, most probably than you do
But
on
I mean specifically like the drums.
Oh, the drums themselves?
Like if you open up a catalog and you see a set of drums, you go, man, those would be really good rock drums. Or those would be really cool jazz. There again, I'm saying, if you get away from the size.
Okay.
Now, typically in jazz, you're going to have smaller kick drum and smaller things,
The drum heads make a big difference for me.
but not the drums, right?
Not usually.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I guess what I'm getting at is, for some reason, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, cymbal companies have gotten into a thing almost to where they're marketing cymbals as like, well, this is a jazz cymbal, this is a rock cymbal, this is a cymbal, this is that kind of a cymbal. You can only play that cymbal. This is a jazz cymbal here. I can only play jazz with that cymbal. Well, it's just like saying on this drum set here, I can only play R&B. Okay, if somebody would ask me to play a jazz gig or recording or something, I couldn't use these drums, which is kind of absurd, you know what I'm saying? So I guess I've taken the long way around to answer your question. Whatever sounds good. You come in here and you look at the different models, and you know what kind of music you play. You hit the cymbal. I wouldn't necessarily be steered into a direction where the Hammer series. I think those are and Master Vintage are kind of be sort of like jazz cymbals. But I typically, the cymbals I use, they may be considered jazz cymbals, but yet I've done them on rock recordings, country recordings, just all kinds of things. And I play them in jazz as well. So I think a cymbal sounds good in a multitude of settings. So there again, that's kind of why I wanted to do this thing here and talk about the importance of selecting your cymbals. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, the resonator.
That's incredible. Anyhow, so when you come in to this incredible store, I don't know that I would go in and say, well, let me try this, because I've heard that this particular series is going to be good for the kind of music I play. Because you may hit it and you may go, man, I don't know. They're saying that this is, good for the kind of music that I'm playing, but I don't really hear it.
Right.
And you may go to somewhere and somebody goes, man, what do you got that thing for? That's supposed to be a jazz cymbal. All them jazz guys use that. But yet you play it in the context of your band and your music, and it sounds fine. It sounds great. So it's all about your ears. I did a clinic last night in another part of Ohio, and we started talking about tuning the drums and everything. The guy said, well, how much attention do you focus on the bottom, the resonant head? And I said, well, quite a bit, because you've got to get everything in tune and it's got to really kind of work together. But what I told him at that time was that I do a lot of flying around the world, and sometimes I'm doing gigs, and sometimes I'll take my cymbals, sometimes I won't. It just depends. Sometimes I say, well, there's going to be cymbals provided and whatnot, but if I'm not really sure of what that is going to entail, if it's a good venue, a good area or something, I'll rely on them to have cymbals. But 9 times out of 10, I will take my own cymbals. And the reason being, I can have a set of drums supplied to me on a gig, and if they're not really to my liking, I can kind of make them close to my liking. I can kind of tune, and like I said, I can kind of almost grit my teeth and go, okay, this is really not what I'm into, but they'll work. Cymbals, on the other hand, are a whole nother ballgame. And I've showed up on some gigs before where they've supplied drums, have supplied cymbals, and the cymbals were just, they were just ridiculous. And not only for me, but you've got to think about the other people that you're working with as well. I'm working with Crystal Gale. She gets used to hearing a certain sound. And she knows what she wants to hear, and it's really strange because she's used to hearing my cymbals, my Bosphorus cymbals, really clean, crisp sound. You get in a situation to where you might playing and I'm not going to start naming other brands, but a brand that's maybe it's a lower level model, and you start hitting it, this clanky and clanging. Well, the first thing she does is turn and look at me. She may not be able to pinpoint that it's the cymbal. All she's thinking in her mind is, man, what's going on with Duane? What's wrong with that? Duane, you feeling all right
on a
today?
guitar or something like that.
Right. Duane, you feeling all right today? Yeah, why? Well, I don't know. You're just not sounding right. And so therefore, I guess when I'm carrying my cymbals around, that is almost like a little insurance policy that I'm going to sound consistent. So I've got a flyer thing there that I kind of put together, and it's about ways that you can become a better drummer. And it's not necessarily sitting down and playing, working on paradiddles or rudiments or anything like that, or working on specific grooves. It's just things that, thinking a little bit outside the box of things that you might not normally think about. Using your ear and hearing, you were talking earlier, we were talking about hearing yourself playing it and everything. It's the whole in-ear monitor thing is really good because, the band that you were playing in, is it kind of a loud band? Yeah. So are you using any kind of hearing protection at all, or?
No.
Okay.
And we started using a separate monitor just for my kick so I can kind of hear it.
Yeah. And so you find that the volume is
It creeps up.
Yeah.
Most bands are like that.
Yeah. So, not only would you be able to hear yourself a lot better, it would also protect your hearing. It's like, I won't do this in here today. Hopefully I won't be that loud when I do play. But there was a lot of younger kids in my clinic yesterday, and I always carry around earplugs. Always. And it's just plain foam little things you can get anywhere. And the reason I do that is because, I obviously use not only me, but you guys too, use your ears in playing and what you do. And you really need to kind of protect your hearing. And that also translates into, we were talking earlier about I'm kind of shifting gears, but it's sort of related. We were talking earlier about marketing the whole jazz cymbal thing and why Turkish cymbals, why those are almost going marketing towards jazz guys. And he said that it's because the rock guys probably can't really hear what the cymbals. And that's something I hadn't really thought about that. What a incredible.
Keen observers.
Yeah, it is. And I thought, wow, that's right. Because guys, I guess it still can hear. You start hitting cymbals, and you're like, wow, what is that? How are you hearing that? And so they're not hearing it. What they're doing, I guess, is the least common denominator. They're trying to get cymbals that aren't musical, just cymbals that are a big chunk of metal that are making a loud sound and it's crashing and it's just blasting. But then again, that kind of goes back into the whole hearing thing, like I was
That's
talking
why I don't
about.
hear the overtones.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say today. Another thing, guys will go in and come in here, and it's fine. It's fine to do, but a lot of times I'll walk into a music store and there'll be some younger guys in the cymbal area, and they're just. You probably have guys come in like that too. What are you doing?
Doing not.
Well, in order to hear these cymbals, I have to just take this stick and I've got to really just back. Really? Because whenever I pick out my cymbals, one thing that I do, and I was doing earlier, is you can hear a lot of the characteristics and what is going on with the cymbal by just if you just tap that with your finger, and I've picked out, I don't know how many cymbals that way, tap it, you can hear the overtones, you can hear where it's at, and I can anyhow, immediately tell if that's emitting an overtone that I really think is gonna work with what I do. And then if I find something, I'm like, okay, yeah, that kind of sounds, then I'll break out the stick. But I don't know that at any time I will sit there and just really, because that's not a musical thing. But I realize that not everybody is in to playing certain things that I play and whatever. So they may be looking for something to where it's just a big chunk of metal, and they do have to do that. But I think most of us that are here, we're here because we love cymbals and we love quality cymbals and the whole mystique. And the other thing about, I got into it last night at my clinic, we were talking about just a lot of companies, you know, Peisty and things like that, they really pride themselves. There was a guy there from last night that was with Meinl, and they pride themselves in quality control. It's like, so if you sit there and you have 17 or 17-inch crashes,
All the same.
you're going
Everybody
to
sounds
go,
the same.
wow, man, that's incredible. And they're all just almost spot on. But what really intrigues me more than that, and when I went down and picked out my original set of Bosphorus cymbals, was I put up 5 or 6 18-inch crashes, and not one of them sounded alike. And then you're like a kid in a candy store, you're going, well, I hear that that's doing a lower frequency. Do I like that better than I like this? So then made it really hard for me. So anyhow, a lot of companies are kind of into the whole quality control. I like the idea that these are hand hammered, actually by individuals. A lot of companies will say they're hand hammered, but I think it's the machine kind of sitting there. They set it to a pattern, and these cymbals are made by guys. Just, I mean, it's you know, it's quality. It's. I look at it as almost like a piece of art.
Mhm.
You know, and each one is different, and it's just great. So that sheet that I have has some different thoughts, you know, to just think about and look at it, and you know, playing drum fills and just watch it, just become a better drummer. It's all kind of related to the whole cymbal thing, and it's just you know, I like to do these clinics like this because I get a chance. I was telling the guys last night, I said it's funny because in this day of the computer and YouTube and things like that, I mean, you can sit there and watch YouTube videos all day long of guys, probably 5-year-old kids, that have more technique than I do and can do all kinds of things, and just, wow, it's just amazing. But the one thing that's lacking with that is there's not a button there that you can push that you can say, Duane, I noticed when you were doing that groove, you were doing something with your left hand. How do you do that? So by me coming around and doing these clinics and things like that, I have a chance to explain some of the things. If you guys have questions that you might not normally think about, or go, wow, okay, that's an interesting idea, so can you talk a little bit more about that? So hopefully guys walk away from this by going, you know, I actually learned something from that. So that's kind of why I do this. I love to play, that's all I've ever done.
How'd you start?
How did I start? I started in the music program in probably the middle school. I was talking like to people last night. I guess there's still music programs in public schools. Good.
Yeah.
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 agree.
Well, I thought there for a while it was like it was all kind of going away, but I'm glad to hear that it's still there. So anyhow, we would get down there and we would work on little ideas, rudiments and different things, and then progress to the marching band and do all these different things. And whenever I got out of high school, I didn't go to college. I went to a place up in New York called the Creative Music Studio. And that was with a bunch of free-thinking, Ornette Coleman, Dave Holland, a bunch of just guys that were just playing, Sam Rivers, Jack DeJohnette,
Okay.
hanging out with guys like that. And so I was exposed to people like that and different concepts and ways of thinking early on. I started applying that to, I think, a lot of other stuff. But I guess I've always been, I think one of the things that I talk about on there too is the value of being versatile. I've always liked a lot of different styles of music, and I still play a lot of different styles of music. And I found out that by playing a lot of different styles of music and doing a lot of different things, from a profession, it allows me to work.
Allows you to eat.
You know, yeah, and I say something in there on my thing, it's almost like if you say that you're only one sort of type of drummer, then if there's nothing in the Covington, Kentucky area for that style, then you're kind of out of luck, you know, or if you are really into a certain style of music that might be popular right now, 5 years from now, and how things change, maybe that nobody wants to hear that style of music anymore, and that's what you've devoted all your time to. It's not, okay, now what happens? What do I do? But by being open and versatile and things like the music was playing here, you know, before we got started, you know, kind of a free jazz type thing. That's cool, but then at the same time, last Friday night I played the Grand Ole Opry, you know, and that was just like kind of the mother church of country music, and it's as far away from Ornette Coleman and
2 and 4
yeah,
splashes.
and the stuff that I've done. But all that to say, there's certain challenges, and I like challenges, musical challenges. There's just as much challenge playing the free jazz as there is just keeping a pocket and playing it simple. I mean that, and I wasn't always hip to that, but I mean it can be really a hard thing to do.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially
Most guys aren't into that, are they?
no, that's right. And so that's another thing. Then we start moving up and going into the recording studio and things like that. You definitely. I had a guy tell me years ago when I went in the recording studio. A bass player said, "He goes, Duane, you want to get into a situation to where the producer is asking you to play more. Duane, I really dug what you're doing there, man. Can you give it more? Can you play more? Because then you're going, okay, so he's obviously kind of digging what I'm doing. You never want him to come back and go, yeah, Duane, can you really kind of tone it down a little bit? You're really kind of wearing us out in here. So
Yeah, you're taking everybody's space.
exactly,
It's a guitar solo, not a drum solo.
exactly, right. Which is another interesting idea. Getting back to the cymbal thing again. Go into the studio. I've got Bosphorus cymbals. And they're, you know, maybe a lot of people are thinking, oh, that must be them jazz cymbals. Because of maybe the marketing and stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever. And I have numerous times, I don't know how many recording engineers, producers, even out on live gigs, shows and stuff, guys are going, man, those cymbals sound incredible. And so that's the testament right there. So fortunately, what I'm hearing is in cymbals is translating to everybody else as well.
So what's led to the diversity in cymbals? I mean, that was the shocking thing walking in here, because when I gave up playing back in the late 70s, early 80s, I mean, it was Zildjian and Paiste. I mean,
Yeah.
there were no other players.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you look and everyone's got the boutique brand, and they're each offering something different.
Right.
It's a wonderful thing. I mean, that diversity of choice.
Well, which gets back to his question. He says he comes in and sometimes he's overwhelmed. He's like, well, what model do I go to? And that's an interesting question. I'm really not sure. You'd probably be in a better position to tell us why you feel that it's come about. I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if there were all these, like some of the other Turkish brand cymbals. I don't know if those guys were always there making the cymbals, or whether they just decided to kind of go into that. But I mean, you can even take one brand. You can even take Zildjian, for example. And like you say, I mean, you look at the catalog and it's like, really? Wow, I have no idea, because there are just so many different varieties, and it's, I don't know exactly what that would be. So for you getting back into playing, it's gotta be like,
It's a little overwhelming.
yeah, even more so. But I would say, here we go, I would say a good starting place would be to go with the Bosphorus.
Okay.
Because I'm just saying, because I've played a bunch of different cymbals. And I was explaining to the guys last night, I had Sabian contact me about a year ago, and he said, Duane, here, get down, there's a drum shop in Nashville. Go in there and check out cymbals. Let us know whatever cymbals you want, pick them out, take them, whatever you want to do. So I go in there, and there's probably maybe this many Sabian cymbals on a wall. And I went through every one of those things, and I hate saying it, but I don't know that I found one that I really liked. And that's kind of weird. So I don't know if that's because they're marketing their cymbals to certain people that maybe they're not really discriminating. I don't know, but it was really
differently than you do, maybe.
right. It was a really weird, eye-opening thing, because I come in here today and was just hitting the different ones, of the Bosphorus, and almost every one of them were unique and I could deal with. Like say for example this is a huge cymbal, 24-inch black pearl. That just has incredible tempo. But, so if you're sitting there, now for me, okay, we'll take a, not a poll, but.
Let's take a tour here.
We'll take a poll. So what's everybody hearing in that cymbal? Let's say good or bad. Positives, negatives?
I have about 4 or 5 different playing surfaces on there that were interesting.
Okay.
It had a nice big wash, it had a good cutting bell tone, but I mean, it was dark, but it cut at the same time.
Right. And so, how about you? What?
I'm with him. It's got a kind of a dark tone, but it's got a nice bell. But I kind of hear like it kind of builds up too.
Okay.
You can hear that.
That may be just maybe because of the size. I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as well.
24 inches.
Yeah. What do you think?
Just it fills the sound, and depends on where you hit it on the cymbal, you get a different sound.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And that's what's cool. And this is like we were talking about this earlier before we started here. This is totally unlathed. This is just guys, taking thing to thing, and there you go. And we kind of were wondering where that started, where that came back, or ever started. I guess maybe cymbals were like this before they had all the lathing techniques and things, So a cymbal, this is like a more of an ancient type sounding, looking cymbal. Now, for me personally, I mean, it's a nice cymbal. The bell is lower than what I would like to hear. I don't know if I can. You hear what I'm saying? So that's going. Hear how it's up,
Yeah.
but I still think. But I found it there. It's got it. And so you listen to a cymbal like that, you also have to think of it in the context of the music and everything. Like I was talking earlier to some guys. There's a trend now, and it's really strange because we almost have to kind of change our, in a way, being in the recording studio in Nashville especially, it's almost like we have to kind of change our gear according to the way engineers are starting to record things and starting to hear things. So what that means is, like I was telling them last night, this is a 10-inch tom. It's almost like engineers in a recording studio, they don't want to hear 10-inch toms anymore. They don't want to hear, like somebody, there's a drum forum that I get on every once in a while online and talk to other drummers all over the world. But one of the questions I thought was kind of interesting was, and then actually now another thought popped in my head, is the 16-inch crash cymbal dead? You know what I'm saying? So it's really kind of strange because I know a lot of guys who aren't using 16-inch crash cymbals, but they're using 16-inch hi-hats.
And that's a trend I don't understand at all, that this trend towards larger.
And that's what's happening. In the recording studio, if you go in now and you have a 10-inch tom, they're like, no, I don't think we can use that. Well, what they're saying basically is the reason all that's happening is they are recording things and it's everything is MP3 and a certain, I know nothing about the whole recording audio type thing, but they're basically saying that guitars, vocals, certain things are being mixed up. So the pitch of a 10-inch tom, the pitch of a 16-inch crash cymbal and things like that are starting to interfere with where they have other instruments and things.
Okay.
So therefore, that's what I'm getting at is this may sound kind of dark and washy here, but you actually get it in a recording studio or you get it in with other guys, you're sitting there drawn to it going, wow, what is that cymbal? Because you can actually hear it because you're now, and I heard you guys talking earlier about competing with amplifiers and things like that. It's almost like if you have like a higher pitched cymbal or higher pitched cymbals, I guess specifically, you're kind of competing sonically with a guitar player or something like that. It's almost like if you go lower, then suddenly it's like, wow, listen to that, because you're somewhere else. That's a nice sounding cymbal to me, because it's a crash, but you hear where it's at, low, but that's got a really cutting bell. But even through that, you were talking about the wash and everything. Even though with the wash, I'm still hearing stick definition, which is kind of strange, because I've used some older cymbals before, like we were talking about Zildjian and things. I mean, you can get into a situation to where you're playing on those things and suddenly you can't even hear the stick or hear the. Situation was real. Some of you guys were talking about the blues thing. So let me see how that might work. Look at the cymbal.
It shakes, doesn't it?
Isn't that incredible?
That's shaking down the arc now.
Look at that.
Yeah, wow.
But that sounds great.
I think
a small blues trio, like an organ trio.
Right.
Oh man,
I think
that'd be
the
great.
Ohio River is over there kind of rippling. But now that I'm getting used to that cymbal, I'm kind of finding out where I can hit that bell to kind of get that higher pitch that I'm looking for. That's incredible. I mean, look at that. So
We're just sitting here watching the vibrations of it. Yeah, you can see the five different nodes on there where that thing is
I
vibrating.
was talking to a guy out on the street there a minute ago. He was loading his drums in from that jazz club. He was a guy that had the Art Blakey cymbal. He said that he just recently had been listening to this record by Pat Metheny, and he was trying to figure out where those cymbal sounds were coming from. And I told him, I said, well, if you've got one of Art Blakey's ride cymbals, you've got, but anyhow, we kind of got into a thing where, and I hadn't really thought about it. He said, and you were talking about this earlier as well, he said, this thing is so big and so heavy that if you dropped it on your foot, it would probably break your foot. And so now, and I told him maybe what you're hearing on these Pat Metheny things is now they're kind of getting into the thing, which maybe is another kind of a morphing thing with the cymbal companies, is you see how thin that is.
Yes.
And so it's almost like they're kind of thinking now to where playing in the low volume like that even really sounds